Okay. It is time for Sober Drunken Rant number 5. Not 100% sober. I've had one drink. That's me just finishing it now. But I had to record something because at the moment I'm so unspeakably outraged at the British police. To a point where I start to wonder about my country. So for context, the date is 9th November 2022, and there was a big protest on the M25, which is for those who, I know I have some people who might listen to this outside of the UK. It's a big motorway that basically encircles London. You can use it if you're going up north from down here in the south, or going south from up north. You can use it to basically go round London rather than have to go through it. It's a traffic jam at the best of times, but there were some environmental protesters blocking it. And 3 arrests were made in total by Hertfordshire Constabulary, because that was the police force for whom that particular section of the motorway fell under the purview of. None of the 3 that were arrested were actually part of the protest, and one of them was a journalist. I'm going to name her because this is all over the press now. Her name's everywhere. So it was a journalist for a media organization called LBC. Her name is Charlotte Lynch, and she was arrested by Hertfordshire Constabulary. She's talked about her details of the arrest. According to her account, she was on a pedestrian footbridge that went over the motorway and was filming and talking into her phone, doing what journalists do. She was getting some details to put together a report on the protest. She'd literally been sent by LBC to cover the protests. That's normal. It's not as if she was even the only journalist there covering it. The BBC were there, for God's sake. But she'd taken a station up on a pedestrian footbridge that was nearby, gave her a good view. And 2 officers of Hertfordshire Constabulary approached her, asked her what she was doing there, and why she was there. She said she told them that I'm here covering it. I'm a member of LBC. Showed them her press pass, and was promptly arrested on suspicion of conspiracy to... I don't know what she was arrested on the conspiracy of. It was something to do with, conspiracy to cause public nuisance or something like that. She'd shown them her press pass. Like, she was a member of the press. Press passes in this country come with phone numbers to one of the police central organisations, certifying that the bearer of that pass has been certified by the British police forces of being a member of the press. That's how it works in this country. So, A, she showed them her pass. B, if they didn't believe her, it would have been a piece of cake to check. It would have been very easy for them to check. That's how these things work in this country. But no, they slammed some handcuffs on her. That was her words. On her left wrist first, snatched her phone away, took her away, put her through the whole rigmarole. DNA swab, fingerprints, mugshot, the works. And then threw her in a cell for 5 hours, and then eventually released her, saying that after further investigation, there was no further charge to be brought. Yeah. There's many people in this country who are having difficulty believing that Hertfordshire Police did that for any reason other than to stop coverage of the way Hertfordshire Police were conducting themselves over the protest. She's now back with LBC and is now basically sharing that story with, pretty much the entire country. We're supposed to be a fucking Western country. The press don't always cover themselves with glory, let's be clear here, but at the end of the day, they report shit that central organisations get up to, like the government, like the police. Shit like that. It's literally... regardless of what you think of them, they are a bulwark against those people doing what they want. They can't just be arrested because the police basically just come up with something saying, oh, well, we think they were part of the protest. Well, the protest was over there, mate. The protest was a quarter of a mile down the road. Why weren't you down there arresting protesters down there then, if that was so much of a big thing? And let's be clear here. People who go to protest run the risk of being arrested. The strong-willed ones are there knowing that they could be arrested and are prepared to be in pursuit of highlighting their cause. And I agree with that. But only if someone's there to report it. If they want to highlight their cause, that's fine. But the press have to be there to report it. If the press are getting arrested, as well as the protest... The press get arrested at a protest like that. What's to stop the cops from just going in there with truncheons and rubber bullets at that point? There's going to be no one there to see it apart from the protesters. And the police will just say, well, it's the protest and it's us. No. Wrong. Arresting a journalist who's covering a protest, not involved in it, covering it, is fucking wrong. Now, in the interests of full disclosure, I'm going to exit this battle. It's not working out well. I have with me... Alright, there we go. Why am I not getting... Oh, for God's sake. I had it here. I have here the statement from Hertfordshire Police. And this is the police force that made this arrest, who covered the protest. It was on their patch, basically. And here is their side of the story. As always, our priority remains to ensure public safety. We have a responsibility for the health and safety of all those involved and everyone at the scene, including emergency services, members of the public, members of the press, and the protesters themselves. Okay. So far, that first paragraph I agree with. You do, yeah. You are there to, as a protector of all those people, including the protesters themselves, provided they don't break the law. Operations are fluid and very fast-moving, with the potential to cause widespread and sustained disruption. Well, it's a protest, that's kind of the point. But anyway, they continue. That not only affects Hertfordshire's stretch of the M25, but also the wider road networks. Our officers have been instructed to act as quickly as they can using their professional judgment to clear any possible protesters in order to get the roads up and running and to prevent anyone from coming to harm. Okay. Let's take that paragraph then. Our officers have been instructed to act as quickly as they can using their professional judgment. Okay, let's consider that professional judgment. To clear any possible protesters, their words, this is Hertfordshire's statement, to clear any possible protesters in order to get the roads up and running and to prevent anyone from coming to harm. Clear any possible protesters. She was on a pedestrian bridge away from the protest, filming it, and she had a press pass. What the fuck did they think she was doing? How is that part of the protest? She wasn't blocking anything. She was on a pedestrian bridge over the motorway. She's not blocking any traffic. 7 people were arrested yesterday. My mistake then earlier. I thought it was 3. So I'll take that one on the chin. Well, I read earlier it was 3. According to their statement, it's 7. So we'll go by them. I'm sure they count the people they arrest. Of these 7, 2 were subsequently charged. 2 were released on police bail with conditions. 3 of them... there we go. 3 of them were released with no further action following extensive inquiries. There's where the 3 number comes from. Those are the ones that let go because they realized they'd made a goof. Though, as a matter of course, we do not comment on circumstances surrounding individual arrests, these circumstances did give us grounds to hold them in custody for questioning in order to verify their credentials and progress our investigation. Alright. Let's take the second half of that statement for a second and think about it. Circumstances did give us grounds to hold them in custody for questioning to verify their credentials and progress our investigation. Right. You don't need to take somebody to a police station to hold them in custody to verify their credentials. It's the 21st century. Computers and networks, computing networks do exist. Right? She had ID on her. She had a press pass on her. The press pass comes with a number. It also comes with a phone number as well. All they had to do was stuff her in the back of their car, call their base, make a couple of phone calls, or hell, turn on LBC. LBC reported her as a missing person because she stopped reporting to them. She'd gone missing. You know, they couldn't get a hold of her because obviously the police officers had taken away her mobile phone. So they literally would have reported her missing, and they were reporting her missing. As one of the LBC reporters said when he did his radio show the following day, if they wanted to know if she was actually part of LBC, all they had to do was turn on the bloody radio station. You know, they were worried like hell for her safety. And if that's the way the police are going to treat people, I can't blame them, frankly. Absolutely disgraceful this is. So, according to her story, and now we're going back to Charlotte Lynch's story, she was held in custody. First she was handcuffed and put in the back of their car. She was then taken to Stevenage Police Station, which is where the centre of Hertfordshire is, their main station, basically. The one that was operating this. That took an hour because there was a protest and the roads were blocked. She then spent 5 hours in that station before they released her. They took 6 hours to verify a member of the press. What the fuck? You know, what the hell? It does not take 6 hours to verify somebody's ID. 5 hours even. If you take the travel time out of the equation, we'll spot them that. Although I question why they even took her to a station. When the inquiries that they would have made at the station, phone calls, checking things on the net, could have been done just as quickly on the roadside. You know. Charlie Echo to control. I'm going to read you a number on a press pass. Can you please verify it for me? 5 minutes later. Hello, Charlie Echo. This is Control. Yeah, verified. That pass is genuine. They let her out the back of the police car, apologised to her, let her go back to reporting it. I'm sorry if I'm simplifying that. But I do feel some justification in simplifying it to that fashion. Because subsequent to this arrest, ex-police officers have phoned in to LBC, no less, and I've been saying this arrest is a disgrace. That's the kind of thing that should have been handled at the roadside, not stuffed in the back of a car and driven down and put through custody, in a police station. It's the kind of thing. There's been more than one police officer, ex-police officer, called in and actually said that. However, equally as disgracefully, not the ex-police officers calling in. I think a lot of people have appreciated their input, saying, "What the hell's the police service coming to?" If that's what they think is an effective way of dealing with that, of dealing with the press, is to stuff them in the back of a car and drive them to a station, and then claim they were checking their credentials when their credentials could have been checked on the side of the fucking road. But equally as worrying, the same radio station also had a couple of current police officers called in, one of whom said, and I will actually post a link of the recording in question and the date and the timestamp of when it actually happens, when it's actually said. of a police officer who didn't call in. I think they texted or Twittered at it or something like that previously, saying that they'd been in the police service for 5 years and they'd never heard of a press pass. I hope that that person is not actually a police officer, and it's just some asshole trying to make the police look worse by trolling them on LBC. Because if that's never heard of a press pass. I've never worked in the press. I'm not a police officer or anything like that. I've heard of a press pass. Everyone knows the press have press passes. That's how they get access to places. How do they think the press cover what the government do? How do they think the press get down to the docks to cover shit that's happening down there? They have press passes. Not heard of a press pass. What the fuck? That honestly, when they read that out, they never said anything on the air other than to say, other than have a couple of ex-police officers comment on that and saying, well, the training must be really deficit. Must be terrible if they'd never heard of a press pass because, I served in the police service for, 20 years and I'm now retired. Obviously, I heard of a press pass. I knew exactly what they were. I knew exactly how to check on them. If you have any suspicions of a member of the public who's giving you a press pass and says I'm a member of the press, you can just basically detain them by the roadside, have an officer watch over them, or alternatively stuff them in the back of your car for a while, and check it. The facility is there to do that. So, what the hell? I don't get it. It's sinister. It really is. It is extremely sinister for the police to do that to a member of the press. Like I say, protests happen. The police cover protests. The press cover protests. Sometimes when the police cover a protest, arrests happen. Occasionally those arrests are even justified. Not very often, because the police normally go in heavy-handed in these things. But protests have people's blood getting high, often heavy emotions, and laws get broken occasionally. So that can happen. And a lot of people who go to these protests know that there's a possibility they get arrested. They're there to make the point. If the press are being arrested, they can't make that point. You can agree or disagree to your heart's content over the point they're trying to make. That depends on your state of your liver or whatever, your point of view on these things. But the fact of the matter is, they have the right to be disagreed with, but they have the right to be heard. And they can't be heard if the press aren't there to cover it. And the press can't be there to cover it if they're being fucking arrested. It's like a bloody dictatorship. Like I say, I've kind of petered out there because I just I threw the recording on because I was just going through today's recordings of it, of what had happened, the interview with Charlotte Lynch herself, as to where she describes her side of the story, what happened. I was reading through the response from Hertfordshire Constabulary, which frankly addresses nothing. Their response is nothing more than just honestly, they would have they just opened a drawer, reached in and said, where are we? Let's find standard response number 5 and we'll publish that. That's literally all they've done. And fuck them for that. Fuck them for not addressing it properly. A wrong has been done here. Something that should not happen in a free country. Or a free-ish country, and no country is truly free, but in a Western country that enjoys Western freedoms, that should not happen. If they have to arrest the protesters for whatever reason, fine. As long as they have a justification for arresting, a proper justification for arresting them, fine. You don't arrest the journalists covering it. If their only crime is being there and being a journalist. And this is the thing, I make that point. If the journalist commits a crime, you have to arrest the journalist. That's literally why criminal codes exist. But there's been no question of that in this particular incident. She was arrested on suspicion of being part of the protest. She showed them a press card, and they chose to take 6 hours out of her day to assess that press card to be genuine. I can't help but be suspicious over that bullshit. Honestly, I can't help but be suspicious that they had an ulterior motive there. This should not happen. They have not done enough to address this. To sit there and just say, oh, well, people have to act on their feet and use their professional judgment, and, things were changing quickly, and bullshit. Sorry, not good enough. None of that is good enough, in my opinion. So, yeah, they need to go further than this. They really do. They need to go further than what they've done, because this is not good enough. This needs to be addressed. And the thing is, I worry about where that addressing it is going to come from, because the police aren't going to address it themselves. The police need to be managed. They need all police forces need oversight. That just is. No matter how decent or terrible a police force may be, in an open country, in a Western country, police forces need to have oversight. Because if they don't, they end up like the LAPD. They end up just basically becoming a bunch of paramilitary thugs. And that shouldn't happen. Now, I'm not accusing Hertfordshire Police of being a bunch of paramilitary thugs. That's obviously not true. I'm not saying that with sarcasm. I genuinely think that's not true. I don't think they're paramilitaries. But they did not conduct themselves with. They've literally covered themselves with disgrace with this incident, and their statement covers nothing. Their statement does not address a goddamn thing. They have work to do. And like I say, the police aren't going to sort it themselves. That just doesn't happen. I know the police have in the UK it's called the Professional Services Division or Professional Services Team or something. I don't remember the right name. I know it's got the term Professional Services in it somewhere. They're technically the internal police people that police the police. But it has to be more than that. You can't just have the police police the police. That's never going to work. There has to be something else as well. And I'm not expecting. The trouble is with the way this government's gone. The way this Conservative government is going, I don't think for a minute that they're going to do anything about it. Hell, they want this to happen. This Conservative government have proven themselves to be sufficiently vicious that I don't think they're going to want to temper the police at all. They want to give the police more powers to deal with protests. That's a matter of public record, by the way. They have said that. And they're wrong. So anyway, I'll call it there. Sorry if this is a little bit incoherent. It's not the alcohol, I promise you. I'm 3/4 of the way through my first drink. Takes more than that to make me slur. But I'm just literally so unspeakably outraged at what's happened here. I just had to turn the recorder on and say something about it. I'll post the YouTube link to LBC's coverage of it. It's one journalist in particular, but actually LBC have had a couple of their journalists cover it, so you can actually search around and find other ones as well. But I'm just going to go by the one that I was listening to. And I will catch you anon. Take care.